Hey, so, the last video I did on my Steven Spielberg Blu-ray collection did pretty well. Seems like you're all enjoying this, so I'm gonna keep it up. I'm gonna get a little Looney Tunes back in action with ya, with yet another version of the same videos that I've been doing over and over again. But this time, I will be talking about my Tim Burton Blu-ray collection that I have here. I really like Tim Burton a lot. He has a good style that's unique to himself. He has good production design throughout all of his films, and he always has a mix of creepy yet good sentimentality value to all of his films. Like, I feel like a child could watch any one of his movies, even though it has a lot of scary aspects to it at times. Save a couple of them, like I guess a kid couldn't really be watching Sweeney Todd. But he seems like a director that can work well with major studios, still release blockbuster films, and yet have a personal, artistic touch to every one of his features. Peewees Big Adventure, and from the start, I will say that the Warner Brothers Blu-rays usually have a good set of features on them. Some of these Blu-rays kind of suck in terms of special features. Some of them only have a trailer, but we'll get to that stuff. And he mostly worked with Warner Brothers throughout his entire career, so Warner Brothers is pretty good at releasing sets that at least have trailers, director commentary, and at least a making of special feature. Pee-wee's Big Adventure is still one of my favorite Tim Burton films, if not my favorite. It probably doesn't have the same kind of filmmaking style, choices, and tropes that would show up in later films that would really identify the movie with Tim Burton, but this one still works really well, and a lot of his early sensibilities are there. So if you've never seen this, definitely give it a watch. Beetlejuice. So this one is probably my most controversial movie as far as everybody else liking it and me not liking it. I have tried many times to give this movie a watch. I mean, I own it, and I love Tim Burton, I love Michael Keaton, I like Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis, and I like them in this movie. But I just can't get into Michael Keaton's role. I don't really like him as Beetlejuice. I don't like the character. I don't like his humor, and I know I'm alone on that. And this isn't something I really would ever fight people about. I'm like, yeah, I just don't really like it. And I've tried. I probably watch this movie every couple of years around Halloween just to, I'm gonna finally like Beetlejuice, and it's never happened. And I still really can't get into it. I like the dinner scene. The dinner scene's good. That's the one scene I really, really like. And the music. The score is amazing. Batman. I still really like this Batman film. And this is actually the Diamond Lux edition that they made a couple years ago. Warner Brothers did this to a couple of their films. And sometimes that was the best way to get the special features. Like, for instance, Gravity had a Diamond Lux edition, and that was the only way you could really get the best special features. Gremlins and this movie also had special editions that had an extra disc that isn't found on any other sets, and even with the 4K release, I don't believe this special feature is a part of that set. Now, do I recommend buying this Blu-ray just for that extra disc? Well, kind of not, because the special feature itself is just a documentary about the film that's 30 minutes long, about being one of the first really marketable blockbusters with the toy lines and the commercials, everything being roped into it. A movie that was built to be successful before the movie was even made, and that's kind of what the whole documentary is about, but it's only 30 minutes long. It's the only special feature on that disc, and honestly, the documentary is kind of negative towards Batman, the film, in a way. It treats it as though it's not really that great of a movie, but was really good at selling toys and the product of Batman. And it seems to completely forget that the movie itself, I still think, is really good. I understand that some people like Batman Returns better, and some other Batman movies better, and I like Batman Returns, and the later movies I like more than this one, but I still think this is a good movie. And it just kind of felt dirty to me watching the documentary, because here's a documentary made for the Batman Blu-ray that's treating the movie as if it was just a marketing tool. But, so many movies are kind of like that, and I don't know, shouldn't we be talking about the filmmaking aspects instead? I get that the documentary was about the blockbuster nature of Batman and how it completely changed how all other movies were to be made, but I don't know, it felt gross. People were kind of, in a way, bashing the movie. That's how I felt, and it kind of completely forgot that there is some really good qualities to that film. Edward Scissorhands, and I've only ever seen this once, but I really, really like it, and I can't get these stickers off the slipcase, so I hate that about Blu-rays, by the way, when you can't take the stickers off. But this is a good movie. So then here's the set that was, I believe, released in 2008 that has all the movies in these kind of thinner cases of the movies made from 1989 to 1997 of the Batman series, as it's listed here. And so that's how I own the other Batman films, and this is Batman Returns. I know they released a newer version of this. I don't know if it's a new transfer, but in any case, I'm not worried about buying it. Blu-ray, even with the transfers that aren't as great compared to later releases where they do a new transfer or a 4K version, I'm still usually happy with the Blu-ray. There's some very rare instances where the quality is so bad that you need to do an upgrade on the Blu-ray itself. But yeah, Batman Returns, also very enjoyable movie. What I love about that movie is that the studio, the first Batman was so successful that they literally gave it to Tim Burton and they said, just do whatever you want. Ed Wood, which I think I said earlier, maybe Peewees Big Adventure was my favorite, but this is actually my favorite Tim Burton film. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's about the life of Ed Wood, who made Plan 9 from Outer Space, Glen or Glenda, and he is a very interesting guy. If you read about him outside of just watching this movie, that's kind of about his life and about his time directing these films. And what I like about it is that they treat Ed Wood, not like he's an awful director, but as someone with a very big heart and a very big vision, and trying his best to get his ideas on the screen. And I think it's a celebration of his life rather than trying to make fun of him. It does make fun of him, but it also, I think if Ed Wood would have had a studio behind him with money to back up his ideas, some of these movies could have turned out great, to be honest. Maybe not Glen or Glenda, I don't really know what was going on there. But Plan 9 from Outer Space, I don't think is really a bad movie. It's fun to make fun of, for sure, and honestly, it's one of those movies that it's so bad it's good, where the bad qualities really stick out and are fun to watch. But the story itself, I don't even think is a bad idea for a story. In fact, it's a story that has been done kind of in other movies, especially in that era of sci-fi. And had he had a big studio behind him, I think the movie could have actually been successful. This movie's also won an Academy Award for Martin Landau as Bela Lugosi, which I know there's been some historical inaccuracies there, but if you watch Bela Lugosi and then watch this movie, it's crazy how seamless the transition is. Mars Attacks, which I finally gave a watch recently, and I kind of really enjoyed this movie. I really like the attitude of this movie. It just doesn't care about the good guys or who the bad guys are. It's like, if you're a big name actor, there's a chance that you'll be dead at the end of this movie. So here's a double feature, which, as far as ordering these movies by director, this is when mess-ups start happening, because you got Sleepy Hollow, but Dark Shadows came out many years later, but this is like the budget version to get for both movies. Man, I remember when Dark Shadows came out and I was excited for it, but given it a watch, I was disappointed. Planet of the Apes, which, not an awful movie. I know a lot of people hate and bash on this, and yeah, it is kind of a bad remake of the original classic, which the original film is great. But I still think there's a lot to appreciate out of this movie. I don't even think at times that it's trying to be like the original film, but it seems like it's trying to do its own thing, but with some very similar concepts. Well, what's funny is that those newer movies came out, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and then the sequels, which are kind of what I was hoping this one would be, where it's got ties to the original, but it also tries to do its own thing, and that seems to be what this movie wants to be, but can't succeed at it. Big Fish, one of those releases where there's not many special features, but it has a commentary by Tim Burton, so they treated it with some fairness, I guess. But Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which this is a movie that everybody seems to not like, and they compare it to the 1971 film, which I love the 1971 film, and I kind of go back and forth about which one I like more. I really like this movie. I read the book when I was younger, and then I heard there was a new movie coming out. I liked when this movie came out because it was much more, it was staying true to the original book. It did make some changes as well, but I don't know, I never got as bothered by the performances as other people did. Like, people downright despise Johnny Depp in this movie. Corpse Bride, which he totally is suited for doing stop motion animation. A lot of people think he did Nightmare Before Christmas. It was actually directed by someone else, Henry Selick, but he was the producer on it, so obviously he always had a love for the art form. He had done a short film at Disney called Vincent. So if you watch that and watch this, there's a lot of style that's carried over, and especially into his other movies, like as far as the different special effects that they would do before CG was introduced. Sweeney Todd, I'm not that big of a fan of the musical itself, to be honest, as far as the adaptations I've seen of it. And then seeing the movie, you know, Johnny Depp's good in it. All the actors are, but it still didn't do much to change my mind about the play itself. Alice in Wonderland, which is another one that I feel like people are split about, and I enjoy this. I enjoy it more as like a sequel to the 51 version, which that's how I see it. I feel like this is supposed to be a sequel to Alice in Wonderland. It carries over a lot of elements from the animated film, but tries to be its own thing. It's more of an adaptation of anything, but just takes elements from the animated film. It's kind of like Dr. Sleep in a way, where it's a sequel, but it's also its own thing, and it's also an adaptation. It's like trying to do many things at once, but in a way that, like that movie does, this movie also satisfies everything that I need. It's an older Alice in this film, trying to enter a world that is nonsensical, and trying to get back to that, and you know, it's like trying to reconnect with your past in a way, because this isn't the first time she had been in Wonderland. Frankenweenie, so he did another stop motion film, and he actually released 2 films in 2012. The other one was Dark Shadows, and he was working with Disney again, which I think was really nice. He was working for Disney back in the 80s for animation, and to come back all these years later to do another animated film, a black and white stop motion film. That's risky. Stop motion and black and white. Like, those are 2 things that, and even then I don't think the movie was too successful. I don't know if there was like a mindset of like, okay, well, black and white movies don't really do well anymore, and stop motion films don't really do well anymore, so let's just combine them and maybe the 2 will negate one another and then everyone will see it. No. But it really goes to show that Tim Burton has some power in these studios. Like, he's able to get the things that he wants done. I mean, I'm gonna assume, because this movie made like $1 billion, like a crazy amount of money, that they pretty much were like, Tim, go make whatever you want. And for Disney to say that, that's pretty crazy in this day and age. Big Eyes, which, yeah, after all these years, Tim Burton kind of went back to making a smaller, Oscar-worthy movie. I think some people, when they talk about later Tim Burton films, they often forget about this one. And Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. I don't know, I kind of liked it, but it felt like it was trying to be every other young adult adaptation that had come out in the last couple years, and I didn't feel the Tim Burton style as much in this one as I did with other films, but there were still things to like about it. I do like that it was somewhat about time travel in a way, so anything with time travel I usually like. And last but not least, we have Dumbo, which, this is my least favorite Tim Burton film, by the way. I saw this in theaters and I hated it. I don't really have anything else to say about it beyond that. Of course I own it. It's Disney, it's Tim Burton, of course I own it. Of course I buy it, but I don't really know why he decided to do yet another adaptation of an animated Disney film. You know, he did Alice in Wonderland, and it was kind of its own thing, but this movie really didn't deviate from the original film. There's a few changes, but this was a case where I honestly disliked every change that they made from the original film. With some of these films that were more personal early on, and then went on to do these adaptations of musicals, books, animated films. It's weird that I guess I never realized that Tim Burton had made so many adaptations and remakes and, you know, animated adaptations. So I don't really know what's next for him, because there hasn't really been anything officially announced since Dumbo was released. So I can assume it's going to be an adaptation. That seems to be his thing, but I'm always going to see the next Tim Burton film. I'm still a big fan. Maybe we'll finally get Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. Give it a comment and let me know what you thought of it, what you think of some of the Tim Burton films, and what you think I should do next. I think my next video I'm going to do all the Disney Animation Studios films that I own. So everything that the company itself, the Disney Studio, has animated. That doesn't include Pixar or Disney Toons or direct-to-video stuff, no. Which is around like 50 to 60 films at this point. Some of them I don't own on Blu-ray because they don't have Blu-ray releases, but we will talk about that when we get to it. So that will be a fun one. I hope everyone's staying safe and staying healthy, and I'm glad you're liking the videos, and just let me know if you have any other ideas that you'd want to see from the shelf, and let me know. Thanks to all my Patreon supporters. For only $7, you can get your own monthly movie review. Ask me to review anything I haven't already. There's also other perks like blogs, exclusive videos, and early access. You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And thanks so much for watching this video.